When he was a kid, his parents took him on construction sites. That's nothing big, except these were in Africa. Now that he's all grown up, he goes around the world making crops grow. Kim Christiansen, right here on Rainmakers TV. So Kim, welcome. This is going to be a fascinating conversation, I know, because in doing the research for the show, you've been in lots of places.
Lots of different places in my life so far, and I hope to go to a lot more.
So you're making crops grow. You're with Eco Group, or one of the co-founders of Eco Group International. So exactly what is that?
Eco Group International is an organic fertilizer. Basically, we're taking the waste from fish, the heads, the guts.
All the fun parts.
All the fun parts. All the stuff that's basically thrown away. For instance, in Alaska, there's well over 12 million pounds that are just thrown back into the ocean. So we're taking that and creating an organic fertilizer, which we've been able to produce better yield, a less cost than chemical fertilizer, where it doesn't pollute the water. So it's an exciting project for me.
Now, right here at Rainmakers, we talk with people who are doing great things around the world, and most of the time it is either nonprofit related or dealing with people at the low end of the economic pyramid. We understand that you do that as well with Eco Group.
Yes, we do. In fact, we have an interesting project we're working on right now. I've been down in Haiti working with the Hertel Group. Ambassador Hertel he sits on the board with President Clinton, ex-Prime Minister of Spain, ex-President of Colombia, and they're trying to help get Haiti back on its feet. And
has Haiti ever been on its feet?
Haiti has never been on its feet, but it's like you go to Haiti, there is no trees left, agriculture is very, very poor. Anyways, we got the news today. He actually just sat down with President Clinton 3 days ago. And they have, and he was talking to President Clinton about our project. And they went ahead and they assigned us their agronomist to go ahead, a new agronomist. The other one got in a motorcycle accident. And to start this thing off immediately. So that was really exciting news today.
We're going to be talking about that project and others that you're working on specifically a little bit later on. But you've had a pretty interesting life. You're Danish by birth, right?
Danish by birth.
But you grew up or spent several years in Nigeria?
Yeah, my parents immigrated over here when I was 3, and then my father, when I was about 12 years old, 11, 12, decided to go to Nigeria during the Biafran War to build a hospital.
So your dad was a mercenary?
Yeah, basically mercenary / missionary, right?
Yeah. So he went over to build a hospital in Nigeria during the time of the Civil War?
Yes. So actually the front line got where there was about 60 miles of us when we were there. So it was rather pretty interesting.
And he took his son over there? Is just becoming a teenager almost?
Yeah, which was great for me. It was the best time of my life. My 2 sisters and my youngest sister actually was born out there. And my mother, she was not too happy about going out to begin with, but she went along and she was a real trooper, I must say.
Well, tell me what you said it was the best time. I mean, we've got some pictures and we're going to be going through some of them. And it seems like it looks interesting, but it doesn't look like a place where you go for fun and frolic.
Well, for a kid growing up, especially, I was always looking to do different things.
And the time frame of this was late 1960s?
It was 67 to 70 we were there. The war was just going on pretty good, and it was fascinating for me because it was at a hospital. So we had a lot of surgeries going on. We had, it was on about 520 acres. We had some African families working at the hospital. We had about 15 expat families, doctors from all over the world. And then, of course, my father being the builder. So it gave me, as a young guy, a lot of freedom to experience a lot of interesting things.
What were some of those experiences? What were some of the things that you remember?
Well, a lot of the things was, well, for one thing, as soon as we got there, the other kids on the block, they thought, let's see what this guy's made of. So he took us down to the surgery ward and opened up the trash can to find out there was a amputated hand down there. So that's kind of how the whole thing started. It was brutal out there when it came to things like life and death. There was an experience, I think one of the ones that stand out the most was we heard one night after we'd been there about a year, all this, a lot of noise going on. So I ran out with my friends through the bush, the jungle there, and behind us was a school. probably, I think they must have had a couple hundred students there. There was about 60 of them. They had circled a gentleman who was a thief. And they all had sticks and they were beating him. And we watched this gentleman get beaten to death for being a thief. Even though there's many, many thieves there. Many things. They were very, very poor. That doesn't justify them being thieves. But if you get caught, then you're dead.
Wow. Did you have Nigerian friends?
Yeah, we had a lot of Nigerian friends. One interesting friend of mine was the chief of Ile-Ife. He had 200 children. I don't know how many wives. And his son used to always come over. And his father would every now and then ask the family to come over. And he had the drummers. They would have drums, and they could actually speak the language of Yoruba was the language on the drum, and you could actually hear it in Yoruba. At that time, I could speak a little bit of Yoruba, not very much now, other than hello.
So, if this were today, and you had a 12-year-old son, would you take him over there and say, let's spend the next 3 years here?
I would. I would, because of it really opened up my eyes to many things. My father got very involved with doing community service over there. Our weekends were about getting into the villages, helping put roofs on some of the widows. You know, if you're a widow out there, you're just as well dead. I mean, it's just a horrible thing. There's no income coming in. I mean, yes, it's true, the women, they do the majority of the farming and everything, but everything is owned by the husband. And if the husband has more than one wife and you happen to be one of the older wives, you're gone. It's very sad. Very sad.
Do you have lifelong friends from there?
I have lifelong friends, yeah. A very good friend of mine, he's in California right now. He grew up in Ethiopia and Nigeria, and we're very, very close.
If you, from the experience that you had there, if you were to say that there was one thing that you learned from it as a well, not exactly a kid, but a young man in any event, 13 years old perhaps, what would you say that you'd learned?
I think the main thing I learned was, it was interesting because coming from California, you know, our biggest fear was, what are we going to do when we get out there? Coming back to California at a 14-year-old, I was bored stiff. I got in a little bit of trouble when I got back. There wasn't enough excitement. There was enough things to do. But I think the thing I learned most is the best time I had out there, I must say, was with my dad, helping him in these villages. It was just incredible. Hopping on the motorcycle and heading out for like an hour or two, way out in the sticks. Or if the Red Cross was coming through, they'd let us use their Jeeps. It was just fascinating as a 14-year-old.
Wow. Now, you go back to California, you went ahead and you became, went through your own school, and then at some point in time you decided for yourself to go back.
Yeah, it was very interesting. And actually this happened through my dad also. He'd stayed in contact with a lot of his contacts through working at the hospital. And it turns out they needed a builder in Kenya. They were building the first medical hospital in Eastern Africa. University of Eastern Africa, it was called at that time, and Daniel Arap Moi, the president, gave about 500 some acres. It was a cattle, I'm sorry, it was for milk. And so they were looking for a builder. So I said I would really be interested in going over there and start this thing. So we started the housing. I was a liaison to, worked with the Canadian government a little bit, to working on the master plan. Of course, back then I thought I knew everything, which I found out I don't. But trying to get it going was a real challenge until my biggest lesson learned out there was probably, instead of taking the U.S. way of doing things in Kenya, figure out the way they're doing it, then we can accomplish our goals.
So this was about 1980?
Around 80, yeah.
So we're looking at roughly 10 years later from your Nigerian experience. What was different about it?
Well, what's different is all of a sudden, I mean, I'd been going through, you know, you got your college, your high school, your college days. I was just starting my business up in the building industry, and I came out there, and of course, Kenya is a lot different than Nigeria. Nigeria, we were in war. Kenya was pretty much peaceful in many regards. Kenya also, where we were at was an eldorette, which was right on the equator, 6,000 feet above sea level.
It was a what?
Right on the equator.
Yeah, but you called it an eldorette?
Yeah, it was called Eldoret.
Oh, Eldoret.
It was the name of the city. So it was about, what were we, about 5-6 hours from Nairobi. up in the tea lands. And it was a very, very interesting place.
And so there you were in Kenya building something for the University of East Africa?
Yeah, we started on the, first thing we did is we started in on the housing projects because we had a lot of professors coming from all over, African professors from, we had from Switzerland, from Germany, from the United States, and they were trying desperately to get this, get the housing started. So we started on the housing first, which was pretty fascinating because we had to make our own blocks out of cement, and then you have a little block machine. We started making that, so we immediately started building 20 houses out of a block and cement, and we had about 125 workers working out there.
And at that time, what was your interaction with the local people?
Well, that was a daily thing. My biggest problem was the sub-chief that was out there. Not the chief, but the sub-chief.
Sub-chief.
He did not like me at all.
Okay.
Because he thought that I was hiring too many other tribes. He says I should hire only that tribe. And I said, and luckily he had come in and he had called this meeting and he was going on about that. Well, luckily that day that he did this and we're all sitting there, I was just reading the newspaper, the Kenyan Tribune or whatever it was called. And Daniel Moy, he had just made a statement saying that we're not of different tribes, we're all one people here in Kenya. Mm-hmm. So I had read this whole article out loud and said to the sub-chief, I just want to thank you for talking to us about how we're all equal.
Isn't Kenya right next to Rwanda?
Yeah, Rwanda is about another country over. That's on the other side of Uganda.
Yeah, but wasn't there not too long after that a vicious civil war between two tribes?
Very, very vicious.
The Tutus and the Hutus and the Tutsis.
But this is, even in Kenya, when I was there, I'm sure it happens now, the slave trade is huge.
Slave trade?
Yeah, you would have two tribes, and we did a trip out. My foreman took me out. He says, we're standing on the escarpment overlooking the Rift Valley, and there's one tribe down there, and there was another tribe where we were at. And at night, they would raid each other and steal their women and their children for slaves.
Really?
And this thing just went on for decades and decades and decades, as it probably goes on today.
Wow. We're going to take a very short break. We're talking with Christiansen, who is with one of the co-founders of Eco Group International. We're going to be talking more about that. But what we're doing now is talking about his experiences that he has had as a child and then as a young adult working in Africa and actually seeing things at the very ground level. So what did you understand that the University of East Africa was for? Was it just a project to get people working, or was it something that was going to be a monument?
Oh no, actually today it turned out it was the first in Eastern Africa school that was actually producing doctors and nurses. And the interesting thing about that is before, if many of your doctors would go overseas, they'd go to England, they would go to the United States, but they'd never come back. So by doing it out there and creating this, it was a great, great school that they were more or less, they would have to stay. So of course there's a lot of incentives for them to stay, for instance, give them a break on their education, and being able to work with other great teachers and also doctors that were coming in on part-time, some of them were full-time. So it made a pretty interesting program for them.
You also worked with health clinics or built health clinics as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I got over there, I wanted to get back in the bush. I mean, we were pretty much out there. There wasn't no large city around us where the university, where we were outside of a city, but I wanted to get back into the bush and see these tribes, going back to my childhood. Mm-hmm. So, and I didn't really know very much I wasn't educated in public health or in any of these things, but the university, they had a group of students, they wanted to get involved in that. So we would go out to different villages, weigh the kids every week, tell them to eat eggs, bananas, fruits. And it was an ongoing process, and we could actually see them becoming better. I mean, there was a tremendous amount of starvation out there and different things. Trying to teach them how to eat the right things to stay alive.
You probably don't look like them. And as a result of that, I mean, I'm wondering, why would you have been accepted? You didn't speak the language, did you?
No, I didn't speak the language, but we accomplished the most is finally when I gave up my way of thinking in the U.S. and thought, if you're going to do a program like this, you better get a local person, a local partner to run the thing. Mm-hmm. Because the local partner knows more than obviously a lot more than I do. So this is why through the university I was able to get local students who knew the area, who knew the people, and who knew the needs. And in the beginning, basically, I organized the transportation, but the overall goal was to get these students involved in local villages. And it was interesting because here it's been, many, many years later, and every now and then I run across a student. I was actually in Nairobi a couple of years ago, and they said that one of the same villages is still doing the same program today, which
Really?
made me feel really good. I mean, not because of me, but because of the students and what they had done.
Yeah, well, even though you're Danish, do you understand what it means when people talk about the ugly American then?
Oh yeah, I mean the Americans, the Europeans, we have it pretty easy. We complain about crazy little things. I mean, things that have nothing to do with staying alive.
You also went. This is actually we're going back in time a little bit, but you went to Ghana as well with your dad and helped build a building there too.
Yeah, actually, it was kind of an interesting story because we were in Nigeria. We went to northern Nigeria, and he did a clinic up there, up in the kind of the outskirts, right where Sahara Desert started. That was crazy country up there. There was not a whole lot up there, but anyways, he had enough. He had a couple months left, so they said, "Why don't you come to Accra, Ghana, and do it was a administration building." So on the way over there, you had to pass through 2 other little countries. Togo was one of them, and they had a military coup. So, and my dad.
So you've been in a civil war and a military coup.
Yes.
Okay, so trouble does follow you, huh?
We're driving along, and the next thing you know, we come to a stop, and they wouldn't let us into the country, and we were the only, family there, American or European family, with just thousands and thousands of people trying to get into the country. So my father it was a truck, and then we had a shell on the back of it. So we spent the night in that thing, and finally they resolved the military. Some people had been there 3-4 days. Finally, the next day they let us go through, but it was pretty interesting. There was no water, there was no food, there was nothing. So it was a crazy time. I don't know how my mom put up with it.
So you went to Ghana, and what was the differences between Ghana and Nigeria, or Ghana and later Kenya?
Ghana is a lot more peaceful country. I feel they have.
It was just a country right next to it that was at war.
Yeah, it was just a country right next to it that was at war. Of course, in Nigeria the fight was over oil, but in Ghana it was all of a sudden we could go to the supermarkets and buy different things that we wanted. We could go swimming in the ocean. We didn't have to worry as much about disease as other places. It was a lot more of a stable government. And the people of the Ghanese, they're very proud people. They love their country over there. They want the best for their country.
How can you, when you go from one country to the other, just like here in the United States, when you go from one state to the other, how can you tell, unless there's a big sign that says, you're entering Ghana. How can you tell that you're in Ghana or Togo or Nigeria? How can you tell?
Well, you have your borders, but I know you know when you've left Nigeria because nobody's shooting after the car after night. You don't have the roadblocks, which had happened a few times.
Oh, I see.
But you got to also remember, let's say Nigeria. Nigeria has over 200 major tribes. Then you've got all these other little tribes off of that. Mm-hmm. Ghana has a lot less than that. But it creates a tremendous amount of confusion, for them to work as one. Ghana is a lot more about being one country and one people, which is fantastic.
All right, so with all of your experiences in Africa, as a child and as an adult, what's the differences and what's the similarities in the people of the West and African people?
People of the West and African people? The African people they're probably some of the strongest people I've ever met when it comes to surviving. We don't know what it is to go without food. We don't know what it is to, just to take a plastic container as we throw it away, or a glass container. This is something that they need and they can rely on. We don't know what it is to sleep outside or in a mud hut. We have it pretty good over here in the United States. That is for sure. In Europe.
Let's move on. You came back and you got more involved in business, and then the disaster happened in Haiti.
Yeah.
And you got called to go over and see if you could help.
Yeah, I was I was working, we have a company where we were doing houses and agriculture, and the housing part was actually for third world countries or developing world countries. And Haiti came up, so we went over there to put a proposal together, and out of 300 builders in the world, we were one of the finalists to go over there. So we put up some housing, not temporary housing, but a permanent solution for that, and I'm still involved with that today.
In Haiti?
In Haiti.
You know, and we've got some pictures that we're showing, and I've got to tell you, I see this incredible palace-looking place, you know, with graffiti on the outside of it. But
Yeah.
but still, there's this. What is that?
That is actually the palace. It was the beautiful building, beautiful building. When you go into Port-au-Prince and you go right downtown, they have this. It was a beautiful colonial-style palace. It was gorgeous. And of course, it was also with your arch. It was a unique, very unique building, but it collapsed during the earthquake. A lot of people died.
But then the rest of the pictures, as we've seen, it's basically desolation. I've been to Haiti, and I've also have been to the Dominican Republic. I go to the top of the hill, and I look over at the Dominican Republic. It's lush and green and beautiful. I look at Haiti. Looks like somebody took a bulldozer to the country.
You know, I found out an interesting statistic today about two of the reasons why they don't have a lot of trees in Haiti. One is they burn them for charcoal, for fuel. The other is United States. They were taking wood from there and for the rifles all the way back from World War I and World War II. The rifle butts. I never knew that.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I didn't know anything about that. But they've totally destroyed, as they have in Africa, many places, for instance, Kenya, is they burn their trees, they make charcoal out of it, and that's what they use for fuel.
Now, they are, you're in a housing project there, and you also are in a fertilizer project there, too?
Yeah, the intent is Clinton Global Initiative, USAID, and all these groups went over there, and they're looking for a solution. So we came up with a solution for the housing, and we also...
As part of the Building Back Better Communities from the Clinton Foundation.
Exactly, yep. Which was a fascinating thing, and it's moving ahead. They're getting ready to build 1 million houses in Haiti for these people. Now, when I say houses, these are 400 square foot homes.
What are they made of?
Ours was made out of styrofoam with a cement covering, and the reason was that it was a lot better for hurricanes and also for earthquakes. A lot of them they're being remade in concrete and block, but at least this time they're using not quite as much sand in their cement and a little bit more rebar, which always helps.
Now, how much time did you spend in Haiti?
Well, I was there 3 times. It was a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And did you get to interact with the local people? Yeah,
we did. I had a kind of an interesting, being that we were one of the first builders on they call it the North Pole for some reason, where this building site is. What they were doing is they had a lot of gangs out there, and this is the worst part of Port-au-Prince on the outside. So every time a container would come, they would try to rob your container. So in the beginning, we had a guard with us, and I said, I don't need this anymore. I've never needed anybody taking care of me with a guard and everything. Well, anyway, as soon as we said we didn't need that, then my container came, and then I had about 40, 50 guys. They tried to storm me and steal my things out of my container. So then I went up there and closed the container real quick, and we're all yelling, and they're standing up there with rocks. They're going to beat me. I'm going, you better start yelling and screaming, Kim, or you're dead. So that's exactly what I did. And it passed, but in the meantime, they had vandalized 4 other houses and ripped them to the ground. Then it was interesting.
Well, why would they do that if you were building something that was going to be of a permanence for them?
They wanted a little bit of money. They wanted. They were also drunk. They just wanted anything they could get for free. They were in bad shape.
What's the difference then, again, in the people of Haiti and people from the West or people from Africa that you've met?
Well, people in Haiti, remember, it was tough from the very beginning, because here are some slaves that were left on the island to fight for themselves to make this place happen. I mean, if you look at the history of Haiti, it was pretty brutal. And even though you talk to the Haitians, they're wonderful people. They're not violent people, no, not at all. They're wonderful people. The people of Africa, they're wonderful people, like the United States, or even in China, where I've been doing. People are the same when you get outside the city, I have found.
It's just inside the city with gangs, and people in poverty do pretty much the same thing. Is
exactly. You get the gangs is a way, no matter where you go, it seems like, in the world nowadays.
Let's talk about Eco Group International then, this organic fertilizer that you have. And the reason that I talk about that is because you're going around the world making things grow.
Yeah, well, we hope to make them grow.
Well, you've done it in China
Yeah, we
from
have.
dead soil.
Yeah, we have. With our fertilizer, we've been able to rebuild the soil with our SOS and also with our, which actually neutralizes the pH factor in the soil, dissolves the salts, and and helps the soil open up so it can get the nutrients that it needs from the soil.
Now, the reason that I asked you to come on Rainmakers is for this right here, because when you are making fertilizer from what was waste, fish waste, is there an economic benefit to the local community?
Oh, very much so. I mean, for one thing, all of a sudden now we're paying them money for their heads and guts. They're not throwing it away. There are some other things that are made out of it, but it's very expensive to make these other products. So they're actually making a good amount of money off of us buying the product from them.
Have you have some results on this fertilizer?
Yeah, we've had our test studies, and also the product's been around for many years. I mean, any place from, I think our worst test result was 13% better in yield. Our best was well over 55%.
So the farmers actually, by putting fish waste on there, well, fortified fish waste, I'm not exactly, and I don't want to downplay it at all.
Yeah.
But by you taking a product that was going to be thrown away and just rotting, you've turned it into fertilizer, and it's significantly better for the farmers.
Well, Stan, remember the American Indians? What did they do? They put a fish in when they were doing their crop.
Yeah, that's right. That's
so
right.
We're just going back in time here a little bit.
So you're working now around the world with the Eco Group International?
Yes, we are. We're working in Ecuador, Brazil, and Haiti. We're working in China, which is a real challenge.
Well, how so?
Because of the government. There's a tremendous amount remember, China, the government owns all the land. So it's a matter of getting the approvals through the government so that they can use the product, which has actually gone pretty good, I'm very happy to say.
And here's the bad thing. I'm looking at the clock here. We have only about 30 seconds left. Why do you do all this stuff? Why don't you just stay here in the United States and make a boatload of money?
You know, Stan, if you went through life and you didn't have some experiences by the time you're old and you can tell your grandkids, then what do you have? The most important thing I think right now is trying to give back a little bit of what we've taken from this whole world of ours.
And let's see, I know you're going to Ghana.
Going to Ghana.
Again, with Eco Group, you're going to try to help
very excited about
that lush area grow.
Yeah, very, very excited about that in July.
All right, so final piece of advice for anybody who wants to do business in Africa right now.
Never give up. Be persistent. And make sure that you tie up with the right partners down there. Because people, everybody's worried about you're going to get ripped off and robbed, no matter where it's in the States or no matter where it is. Just tie up with the right people, because people are all the same all over the world.
We'll let that be the last word. Christiansen from Eco Group International, who helps crops grow all over the world. We'll see you right here next time on Rainmakers TV. Take care.